expected. Everyone all right? No shattered
You
knees?
might find this interesting.
Good. Just me then.
That was bracing. Brave thou not fearly. I'll let Margaret's. Let's burn this away. Let's burn this.
The work of a moment.
Brave thou not fearly. I'll let Margaret's fire bless this. I'll let Margaret's fire bless this. Brave thou not. Here's a lesson. Let's burn this away.
Hello, brother. If you are so different now from who you were then, yet much remains the same. I have had time to make my peace with all possible fates. There is little anyone could do to cause me I can only guess your presence here has something to do with Theos, the energy of this place. After all this time, I will tell you what I remember. I can see his influence. It was just after the trial that the gods...
I dreaded the idea from the moment that she's not serious.
Perhaps not to her. There's a theory puts my boldest to shame. But we ourselves have seen the gods.
What I taught was that the gods whose faith they were conceived by Engwith, a society of high minds and broad concerns. Theos's people. In their time, every people worshipped its own gods. Sometimes, generation after generation. It shook them, this finding. If they could discover this on their own, how long until others? I never thought of it as fate. I became a missionary because the gods brought me hope that I wanted to bring to others. For a time, the truth sent me to a dark place. Then the Engwithan missionaries all knew it, but they never told the rest of us. They meant it. You asked me this once before. Everyone faces. What if all the tragedy...
That's not... That can't be right.
The power of the gods is undeniable. What if it were forbidden knowledge rather than fault?
I have seen with my own eyes the deceptions of my goddess. The Watcher has shown me it.
You speak of her deceptions, but what of your own? Was it her words that led you down your path? Or was it the absence? What if you had always been...
Wholly as I've chosen my guides, I suppose it would...
The freedom has all... If all our common threads are...
All of us across Aora are trying to survive. We'll find our own truths. Make them if we must.
What if even mastery...
I stopped asking those questions long ago. It is enough to care for... Verus, we find purpose in our...
There is bliss to be found in the things we create, but sorrow. I ask these things not to trouble you, but to show why they must be confronted. No answer is simple, but somewhere between them all lies a truth so beautiful, not even a god could conceive it. If that is truly what you believe, then you are a far different... I've been alone here with my thoughts for so long now. I've found peace with my failure. I need to know why you chose to remain with the Inquisition, even after you'd learned the truth. Do you remember? I knew it was a risk, taking you into my camp. I knew you still had strong feelings. Good. The things I taught, the things I believed, I needed to hear that. I needed to know it wasn't. I've always looked up to you. You had heard both sides, seen everything. If not you, then I expected dissent. But I needed to know that true faith would prevail, even knowing what you... And what of your understanding of our past? Are you at ease? I have always forgiven you. At first I thought this might be the source of your soul's anguish. Yet if there is anything I can tell you that would be of use, ask and you shall know. I could not say for sure, but you have been to Sun and Shadow before, and it came at his words mattered to you when you... He cares only for the secret. That's why he's always favored Woodica. It isn't in her love of promises or justice. If Theos succeed, in a matter of speaking, this is Braeth Yamen, the court of the penitents. This prison was full once in the days of the Inquisition. They aid you because they would bend you to their own purposes. Engwith built God, but these souls... Last time someone asked me that, I was bound to an iron wheel with a broken spine. The gods need to be reminded that we have a spirit. You will not find a more resolute being on all of Eora. Theos will not wait for you. If you do not catch up to him now, you may never find him again. If I repent, all I have done has meant nothing. It is a cruel fate to wait all this time to be reunited with my only brother. Only to be forced to part. I suppose I have waited long enough, and I do not wish to delay.
It's true. The gods are a sham that people have followed for thousands of years.
Doesn't that just beat all? Here I was, wonder how things would have gone different 15 years ago if the Raid Sarens had been told their god was made in some forge or kiln someplace. Would we still have gone to war? I could see the rebellion still happening, but when Woden left for war, we, had a fight. As brothers will. About him going off to war. He was set on it. But my parents warned him. Me? I didn't know who was right. I said every vicious thing I could think of, trying to change. By the time I'd cooled off, months had passed. One morning it dawns on me that my brother always knew better than me. If I'd have left with him, we'd both be dead, so... I found my own way in the end. I don't regret it. Crossed my mind. You live in a place like Gilded Vale. I hope that wasn't it. Still one more mess we gotta straighten.
You must.
our whole lives, and many lives before that. And it's led us to put our faith in a pantheon of gods that never deserved it in the first. People will be better off finding direction on their own than following this farce. Besides, the gods haven't exactly done much to prevent us from slaughter. Seems like that's all they've been doing. There won't be much left of Theos by the time you're done with him, if I know how you operate. That will leave the leaden key unexpected coming from you. Why keep it going? When this is all over, I'll remember what we've been through. I'll see the leaden key transformed into a stronger, better guide for kids.
I can't see much, but I hear a noise like a pig choking on wet feed. So, I guess Durrance is breathing at least. This is odd to you.
Look at that. A city to put all others to shame. And long lost.
We light our own path. Now, here's a lesson. Here's a lesson to be taught. Let's burn this away. Let's burn this away!
You cannot venture forth while in combat.
What?
Are you ready to take the oath? To spread the word of the gods to the lost and heathen? I wouldn't. If you do not, you will have greater powers than me to answer to. But you will answer to me as well.
This is a missionary, same as I was, taught the wrong things as I was. Inquisiciones. They...
You are ready to give a confession?
I am ready
You're not expecting
to
much.
hear one from you.
Yes?
Hey,
You are far from your post, Inquisitor. What they are? The Inquisition was based on the need to cut the flesh from a rotting wound. It has many. We are in a sanctum holy to Utica. There are others like it in service to the other. What is a god? A higher power? A rewarder of good deeds and punisher of the wicked? Something men can turn to in their darkest moment? We are in a sacred place within earshot. You will return home. There are... How did you find it? Another in a string of acts of petty defiance. For all her... Then she should have obeyed. I ask one thing of all... What of your cohorts, then? They have followed you. You worship...
your spies are good. What gave me away?
Yet when your god needed you the most, you chose your country.
We were being invaded. Not by anyone who was there.
Then I should think your hometown gave you a hero.
They made cake. Hard to blame people for losing faith when it's the gods who are misbehaving.
The gods argue over how best to prevent... You have devoted yourself to studying the work of my...
I thought your people had much to teach us. That we, too, could create great...
And did you ever consider that these were things... You are living in the time of my people, Amawa. You owe them more than you will ever... Greater civilizations than yours have attempted to reclaim what we bear. You built a weapon that delivered exactly...
As you did yours.
Yet the other builders were slain. 11 of a dozen. Why not you?
To be redeemed in her eyes was
Or was it merely that your goddess wanted you dead as well?
arms, nothing more. But the spells...
You were able to destroy a god because another god wished it. Without her hand to guide you, I understand your duke's bells gave you a mission.
Their orders do not absolve me of my greater responsibility.
Yet you disobeyed. Something you already have a reputation for. They will know, of course. If it had been for a worthy cause, they might have forgiven you. But I don't see them.
The parents scold, but the children are safe. In any case.
State your name and purpose, young act.
To the gods, in my hand to their service. And I'm going to purge it of your state.
You serve none but yourself. Without contact with your order, you can have no higher purpose.
I've risen above them. I'll take the leaden key and lead in a way that you...
A leader without insight, directing an organization that does not question. You are here because you are lost. The gods cannot reach. I gather you have had your soul awakened. Why else would you... I answered your questions once. That your soul is not fit to accept the answers is of little concern to me. I lied to no one, Not to you. The spread of our faith in the heart of this country has skipped a beat. Not when plague arrived at the great city of Arborensis, I saw. That's where you were. There was a time, back when your soul was still a shapeless mist, when the world believed only in false gods. Thousands of them. Gods that told them to take slaves. But all that changed when they learned of the truth. There is no false. Have you imagined this existence? The one the... But more than that, it would be a hollow existence. All mysteries. For all my years, I have seen exactly all I have seen. The millennia. You have not thought this through. There is no leaving this place with your soul and thousands of... Hear me, Wood.
You're not getting through me.
I fear we've lost the angry one. Worth and wrath.
Worth it. Moet X. Laparu. Artek worth it.
Got it.
Moet Ixi Anna.
Damn, our dog.
Worth it.
Get top line.
Lavaru be up.
Yeah?
Lavaru. Artek.
Lavaru, be on seat.
Lava room.
Love. Yeah?
Artifact.
Huh? Got it.
Lava room. Ulu thin. Lava room beyond. Croak 10!
Pray thou God hear. This isn't working.
Roark 10!
Watch out! Leave it to me! That's helpful. Swerve that rock!
What? Oh, wait.
You're not getting...
I fear we've lost the angry one.
Croak 10!
Brave thou not believe.
could use a wee kick.
Backward and roar!
Stand still! Let's burn this away! Let's burn this away!
Lava road beyond. Backward and roar! Back.
We're losing people.
Let's end this!
The Archer's box goes.
This is working! Forward! Brave thou Celestial.
Be more careful.
Perhaps a little rest is in order.
All those lifetimes spent to preserve us.
That's the servant down, and the mistress.
In his own way, Theos must have.
Some point, all those lives.
Hey.
Astounding. I always knew the leaden key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, this is beyond either of us. The certainty of the gods is a mercy. Power like this is a heavy burden. Just look at how it crushed Theos. It's your decision, of course. And whatever you decide...
We've come to the end of it, my friend. It has been an honor.
Ah, the end of the road greets us at last. You fared well, Watcher. Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time.
So much for Theos, then. Now you have a chance to set things right.
Theos, he had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him? Feels good, doesn't it? You'll be feeling better soon, then. Good. Got a lot of people out there thinking, if it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if, after what you've been...
Sure.
Hey.
Yeah?
You know something of quiet servitude, Watcher. Groveling, you have labored at the pleasure of others. That shrivel, and now the gods give you orders. The exiled queen is not. Finish the work Theos began. Strengthen Woodica with these souls and allow... Yes, consider...
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun in Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the souls diverted by Theos were guided back to the vessels originally meant for them. For the first time, parents of hollow-born children woke to the cries of their infants and looked into their eyes to see them staring back. People fell to their knees where they stood, thanking Helia or Mogren, or even Aethys for their forgiveness of whatever guilt they felt they bore. But for all the relief that had come to some parents, others only found new grief. For many thousands of Hollowborn had died during Wide One's legacy, many by their parents' own hands. For those children, there would be no homecoming. Yet the last Hollow birth was in the past now, and those parents willing to risk trying for a new child were frequently rewarded, often with twins. Many felt they saw Helia's hand in it, and the year would be remembered as the year of Helia's splendor. The loss of the souls you had promised to Entropy would be no setback to Remergant, nor to Andra, for the Beast of Winter trudges ever forward, and the will of the Lady of Lament is as unstoppable as the tide. In Deerwood, the weather quickly chilled. Unseasonable frosts destroyed the year's harvests before giving way to the coldest winter in memory. Many who survived the famine would soon freeze to death in their own homes. The oceans proved no safer. A barrage of squalls pounded the harbors along the Deerwooden coast for months, sending many ships to be forever lost in the depths of Andra's domain, either mourned or forgotten, both to the lady's liking. It is said that Galawain is the enforcer of the guards, and is known to hunt down those who wrong them. To wrong Galawain, then, is truly to wake the beast, and the father of monsters took great umbrage at your broken promise to him. Along with Mogren and Abidan, Galawain embarked upon a more direct approach to claiming his quarry. In the months that followed, the frontier settlements of Deerwood were inexplicably attacked by packs of beasts and monsters, suddenly organized and unafraid to approach Kith on their own land. Many such villages were all but destroyed by the time troops could be dispatched from local garrisons. Those that weren't destroyed by the beasts of Gallowayne often found themselves at the mercy of the fires of Mogren. A dry spell throughout Deerwood led to a rash of forest fires on a scale not seen since the War of Black Trees, and many settlements paid the price for their proximity to the wilderness. In the cities, meanwhile, dabblers in animancy who had placed souls into golems and other moving vessels soon found that their creations had risen up against them. Such constructs terrorized their surroundings, killing indiscriminately and often in great numbers before being subdued. Followers of Bereth have a saying that life is a debt all must pay in death, and their god is known to always collect what is owed. In breaking your word to Bereth, a debt was created. Souls were owed to the cycle, and the agents of the god of inevitability would not be refused. An epidemic of unexplained deaths struck Deerwood in the days that followed the legacy. Most often the dead would be travelers on the road, known to be a favorite target of Bereth's Pallid Knight, who exacts impossible tolls from those who have journeyed for too long. The elderly, too, seem to pass on in alarming numbers, but just as often, the deaths appeared to strike randomly, and for no reason at all. Those who sensed the involvement of the twinned god dubbed the calamity Bereth's Price, supposing it a payment for the end of Wydwin's legacy. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order was soon re-established by the Knights of the Crucible, who, despite their depleted numbers, had gained favor in the public eye for their role in the unraveling of the conspiracy surrounding Wydwin's legacy, and were quickly reinforced by returning forces from Fleetbreaker Castle. For the Knights, their resurgence marked a return to the tradition as well. Having seen firsthand the dangers presented by dabblers in animancy, the Order quickly abolished the practice internally, preferring the familiarity of their hammers and forges to the uncertainties of Essence and Adra. Their identity rediscovered, the Knights suppressed their political aspirations and began once again to train their recruits in the art of blacksmithing, recapturing the post-revolutionary ideals of Deerwood and regaining the respect of its citizens as a result. The destruction of the machine atop Ter Noaneth spelled the end of the reanimated corpses in Heritage Hill. Though at first few were willing to venture into the abandoned district, it was soon cleaned out and rebuilt. The district's horrors still fresh in people's minds, it would be some time before it was fully repopulated, but eventually the lure of cheap prime land would all but erase the memory. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay, and few animancers survived the first day. In the weeks that followed, angry citizens, their rage stoked by word that the Duke had been about to ban the practice, formed vigilante mobs and hunted down the survivors. The sanitarium was decorated with the dismembered heads and torsos of those who had practiced the science, and anyone caught studying it thereafter was soon added to the macabre display. The age of animancy in Deerwood had come to an abrupt halt. The town of Deerford had seen the last of the cult of Scan. Dark rumors about the town's many curses quickly faded, and travelers soon returned. The destruction of the Eyeless and the permanent loss of Abidon's memory emboldened Andra. She considered the knowledge that Kith might have found both of the origin of the gods and her part in concealing it, and vowed that such a calamity must never come to pass. She churned up a fury in her seas. Underwater mountains rose and fell, and the seabed was swallowed and spat out again by the great maws that divide the continents of Kith. Only a fraction of this chaos reached land, but it was enough to swell rivers and spread earthquakes throughout the Deerwood and Air Glanfath. Coastal towns suffered so that few noticed the damage that had been done to Engwithan ruins, from Thane Bog to Twin Elms. Thus, they sealed off the White Forge and abandoned their pursuit of Durgan's steel. Durgan's battery became a trading post once more, and Stalwart thrived in its shadow. Stalwart's revival brought trappers, traders, and artisans from all over the Deerwood, and from Red Ceres too. Prosperity brought peace to the border region, as Deerwoodans and Red Serans alike left old quarrels behind. The Flames That Whisper clan found a cautious peace with Stalwart, particularly once the villagers heard of the aid the ogres had offered against the Eyeless. The clan moved back into the Russet Wood, and as Stalwart grew in prestige, the villagers formed a tighter alliance with their ogre neighbors. Within a generation, ogre traders visited Stalwart, and village hunters were welcome in the Russet Wood. Releasing Harmka left the Devil of Carrick with a gnawing dissatisfaction that continued to eat at her long after the Watcher confronted Theos. She resumed her search for the men and women who had raised Cold Morn, clinging to the hope that enacting her revenge might one day allow her to feel something. Yet, as she hunted and killed, the futility of her actions grew like a leaden weight in her gut. Her movements grew stiff and sluggish as her zeal deserted her. One day, she found herself surrounded in Maiden Falls. As she tried to fight back against the villagers, she felt her arms stick in their sockets and her legs buckle beneath her. The villagers tore her body apart and shattered its segments while she screamed, feeling none of it. Free from the burden of her memory, Maneha soon left the gift-bearers and resumed adventuring. Now that she had a taste for the world, she wanted to experience it anew. Maneha rediscovered her zest for battle, extravagance, and romance. She kept her gaze on the horizon, looking from one journey to another more distant, from the lover in her arms to another more fervent. Hers was a life of excitement, violence, and passion. She moved too quickly for regret to catch up with her, and she hoped only that she might outpace it in the next life as well. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. After the death of the Master below, a strange quiet fell over the endless paths of Adnua. The attacks on the fortress above ceased, Adnua's silent titan the closest remaining thing to a master in its musty, forgotten passages. Palagina had gone against the Duke's Bell's orders by inventing a new trade arrangement with the Anamenfath to accommodate the recovering Deerwooden market. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Weidman's legacy, the Valian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. For her outrageous insubordination and audacity, Palagina was banished from the republics. She traveled north in the Eastern Reach, avoiding Valian ports and entering the ranks of the kind wayfarers. Despite her bravery and dedication to those in her care, her strange appearance made her feel like an outsider wherever she went. With your business concluded, Haravius quietly took his leave and headed home to Thane Bog. The elders of the Fisher Crane had not warmed to Haravius in his absence, and when he arrived, he was denounced and scorned. Haravius spoke of his deeds and of his communion with Galawain, yet none would support his petition to return to the tribe. One by one, starting with the oldest, Haravius challenged each member of the council to single combat, humiliating the Riau in a series of savage duels. With half the council bloodied and shamed, the elders at last acknowledged Haravius' strength, announcing him a hunter of the Fisher Crane tribe. Upon being granted this title, Haravius calmly left the village and embarked again on his life of wandering. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the Gilded Vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ix Arcanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong, and he knew what he would do better. The secret of the gods would be preserved, and with it, the sanity and well-being of all Kith. He donned the remains of Theos's ceremonial garb and prepared himself for the long and lonely task ahead. With both their aims fulfilled, Kanarua bid the Watcher farewell and sailed back to his beloved Rawatai. There, he reported on his findings to the Lore College. Kana spoke of the Engwithan people, describing both their vile experiments and their inspiring accomplishments. He spoke too of the destruction of the tablet by the Leaden Key, and the group's efforts to erase the Engwithan legacy from the world. Both inspiration and cautionary tales, he said, could be found in the world beyond Rawatai's borders. Kana urged his people to continue to pursue knowledge abroad, so that the lessons found there might benefit Tekoa. Kana's inability to prove his theory of Engwithan influence diminished his academic standing, but his passion drew much interest from those less concerned with degrees. Kana swiftly became an influential figure in the move toward a more collaborative approach to expansion on the northern continent. In his personal life, he came to enjoy the reputation of an affable eccentric, willing to share grand and impossible secrets, along with a drink and a song. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood, and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Theos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. In her 4-month journey back to Nositoc, Sagani found that the landscape she traveled had become strangely colorless, the food bland and unsatisfying. She watched the Deerwood, Air Glonfoth, the Valian Republics, and the lands beyond slide by with a dull sense of dread. She returned home to great celebration, yet the words of joy and congratulations rang hollow to her. Old beloved songs sounded toneless. The rituals of changing seasons became drudgery, and Sagani experienced her life back in Masuk as if in someone else's skin. So she fought to feel the worth of her actions, or, at least, to let her village feel them. She led ever longer and more ambitious hunts, mentoring the younger rangers who followed her. On one such expedition, her party was beset by a blizzard, and she pressed on where her companions turned back. She did not return to Masuk. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead, made no easier by your decision to bring an infant to Sun and Shadow.